I'll tell you in a second. I'm waiting for people to get out the door. Well, let's see what I got. That's you, right? That's you, Caitlin. Oh, this is common. Here you go. This was just you two. I've apparently been hanging on to this forever and I don't know where I'm going to keep forgetting to hand it.
I handed you the wrong person.
Yeah.
I did it and then I must have pulled the wrong one.
Yeah. No, the twins were holding one of Everly's and it died in her hand. I don't know. Grace comes up, she's like, I'm like, what? It was very dead. They just, you look at them wrong and they die. Like, it's they're just the craziest little, most fragile creatures. It's really weird. Like, there are ones in the, like, if you're taking them home, I highly recommend you get, this may sound archaic to you, but get on Facebook because there are groups for quail keeping that are really helpful, really helpful. But like, people talking about them getting spooked and flying and banging their heads on the top of their coops and like getting brain damage and dying and like they just So anyway, I don't know what anybody know what happened. I have no idea what happened to that one. They came up to me and it was like I was like, well, one more down. But I feel bad because Emerson only had one and then it just died. Like I opened the coop one day and it was just in there dead. And then Everly still had two, and now she lost them. But that one she lost, though, that was the smallest of them all. And I was concerned about it the whole time. Like because it was so small. I'm texting their mom to make sure she knows. No.
The trauma.
So anyway, being so small is not necessarily a great sign. So anyway, yeah, there was one this morning that somebody put in the group. It was a completely yellow new baby, no stripes down its back or anything, just completely yellow. But its eyes were like huge and kind of swollen. And then when it opened its eyes, they were not black or brown. They were like kind of a weird reddish color. And they're like, is this an albino? And somebody's like, it might be. Does it have hydrocephalus? So there was like this whole conversation about what's wrong with this chick. Like, the groups are helpful, but I think it might be albino and hydrocephalic, but we shall see. So, all right, anybody? Nobody's taking birds today. Everybody's taking birds next week. Okay, but Mohammed boys, go home with all of the stuff you purchased.
Yep.
I told Eunice the only thing you can't take with you today is the heat light because I'm using that if it gets really cold at night still, like when we had the little bit of rain overnight Sunday. But I was saying we're out there, we have this stray black and white cat that just floats. Okay, this is ridiculous, but the people that used to live here had this cat and they gave the cat to the people that live two houses down. You can't give an outdoor cat to someone that doesn't work, especially if they live two houses away. Like that cat just expanded its territory and he just goes back and forth. He's beautiful, but every night I get alerts when I wake up in the morning that there was motion on my back deck. And every night I look, and that cat has been like standing up and looking at them and trying to figure out. And last night it walked around the table like twice. It got up, and it's like nose to nose with those birds, and it's like, how do I get it? But can't get them. So, all right, we're gonna do lesson 30s, skeletal, muscular, integumentary systems. So let's start with our good old skeletal system. Your skeletal system supports your body, protects your internal organs, assists in movements, stores minerals, and what kind of cells are formed there? Colin? Stem and one other, yes. Blood, yeah, blood and stem. That's what we're looking for. Yes, very good. All right, so looking at our friend here, what portion of this skeleton is for protecting organs? I can see Drew. Rib cage is one. I can see one other. Caitlin. Yeah, your skull. Skull and your rib cage are mainly there for protecting organs. Your pelvic girdle, you could argue, also protects some of your reproductive organs that are inside, but its primary function is for your legs, right? Hips are a little higher. They're here-ish, which is why they can get injured if you get a blow to the back, because they're not completely protected by your pelvic girdle. So yeah, blood cell production and stem cells as well. How many bones do we have? 256. 256? 206. 206. There we go. 206 is right. Yep. 256 would be fun too. And then, oops. So the part of your skeleton, your axial skeleton, since Ashley did that, your axial skeleton is like, your head, your skull, your rib cage, and your spine. And then what do you call the skeleton that's your arms, legs, pelvis, shoulder area? Appendicular. Yep. So what do you call, what's another word for arms and legs? Collectively, appendages. So we get appendicular skeleton because they are your appendages, right? All right, now, bones are a solid network of living cells, protein fibers that are surrounded by deposits of calcium salts. All right, they're living. Now, when you see, if you've ever seen bones, they're no longer living, right? The parts of your bones that you see, except for like your teeth, that's really like kind of the only part of your skeleton that you're actually seeing on a daily basis. But if you've seen a real human skeleton or you've seen any other kind of animal bone, it's no longer alive. It doesn't even look like something that ever was alive, right? Because it looks more like a mineral thing. And at that point it is, right? So like when they did my bone graft, so I looked that up. Who went and read that? Did anybody go and read the little thing I wrote about bone grafts I put in there? So it was interesting. So bone grafts, they take either from cadavers, so people who donated their organs, or they take them from hip replacement patients, because when they do a hip replacement, they cut this off entirely, this entire top process of your femur, and then they have this bone that, although it is worn down, maybe in the joint, the bone is still healthy. So what they'll do is they run it through a number of processes where basically all you have left are some of the fibers, the collagen, the protein fibers, things like that, and some of the calcium salts. But all the cells, all the living cells are removed, everything like that, all the DNA is gone. So you don't react to having like somebody else's organ put in your body because they've taken out the parts that you would identify as foreign. So your bones have nerves, blood vessels, and you look here, you've got compact bone, so that's in the main shaft of your bone. Towards the ends, you have spongy bone, and it's very strong, even though it looks like, it's full of holes, but that it's still very strong, kind of like how tubes are very strong. It's the same idea, right? And so you have little canals that run through them, and you can see where blood vessels come in and out. If you look at bones, actual sample specimens of bones, you can see little tubes, little tunnels that go in and out where your blood vessels go in and out because they're going in there to get all those new blood cells that have been formed, and they're bringing minerals to and from the bones, that sort of thing. So long bones are surrounded by a tough layer of connective tissue. It like shrink wraps the bone. Does anybody know what that was called? So it's like a bone shrink wrap. It's called periosteum. And you can see this sometimes if you are like working in the kitchen with like maybe a beef shank. Sometimes you can see it on like a chicken drumstick, probably not on the wings. They're very small. Those bones are tiny, but it's like a shrink wrap that goes around. Those lights don't come on. Are you trying to make the lights come on?
No, the heater's not working. The AC's not working.
It's 69 in here, 72. Oh, I just dropped it. I just set it down. That's perfect. Of course, that's what I needed. I'm hot because I was outside, so I can't tell if anybody else is hot. So, All right, so what's the type of connective tissue that's soft, strong, flexible, and supports the body? What is that? Cartilage. Okay, where have you got cartilage? Ears, where else? Just say it. Nose, where else? Joints. Yeah, ears, nose, joints. Definitely you have cartilage in your joints. Some people damage the cartilage in their joints. A real common one is tearing your knee cartilage. Anybody know anybody who's torn their knee? Yeah, my mother's done it twice. Yeah. Yeah, it's rough if you tear the cartilage in your knee. It can be very painful. So that's cartilage. And your bones contain cavities through the middle. They're hollow, right? And there's marrow, and there's two types of marrow. You've got yellow marrow that's mostly fat, and then you got red marrow, and that's where your blood cells are produced. So what's the process where cartilage is replaced by bone? It gets mineralized and is replaced by bone. Ossification. Ossification. Very good. All right. So here's a word for you, or a root for you. Anytime you see osteo or os or ossi, you're dealing with bones usually, right? So does anybody know what an ossuary is? No?
Isn't it like one of those like spirit places where they like have like bones hanging from the ceiling and stuff?
Yeah. So an ossuary is like a permanent storage place for human bone. It's a type of burial situation. And sometimes it is, sometimes it's done in an artistic way. So if you've got a smartphone, pull it out.
The bone king. Have you seen it?
One of my favorite places I've ever visited in my life. Type in SED LEC ossuary. So OSS. It should start to autofill.
Is there a ton of them in like South America?
Maybe. This one's in Slovakia. That place is amazing. Ridley got a picture. Have you got pictures yet?
Yeah.
Absolutely wild. There's a massive chandelier in the middle of the room. It was wild. You have to drive, like, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, Slovakia, but it's really cool. So if you've got a phone and the person next to you doesn't, like, wave it in their general direction so they can like get a look, because that is crazy wild. Yeah, beautiful. So that's an ossuary. So now that'll help you remember. So what bone cells secrete mineral deposits that replace the cartilage in developing bones? Caitlin.
Osteoblasts.
There you go. You got osteoblasts, and that's what they look like. They're in the middle, all right? So these are the guys that change cartilage from bone. And here's something that kind of, here's one situation where it's pretty clear. Think about a baby, maybe under the age of 2, 2.5, 3. Now think about their knees. What don't they have?
Kneecaps.
No kneecaps, right? There's no kneecaps. So eventually some cartilage forms there, and then a patella will form there, a kneecap, but they don't start out with kneecaps. Also,
that would kind of hurt.
Yeah. There's a lot of other parts of an infant's skeleton that has to ossify. So the osteoblasts are doing that job. So which of the cells maintain the minerals in the bone and continue to strengthen and grow the bone? Yusuf?
Osteoclast.
Osteocytes. Okay, osteocytes are going to do that. And then the osteoclast is going to be the last one. And they're going to break down the bone minerals. Why would you need to break them down? What do you think?
Well, I know the babies have more bones when they're born, so like when they're like joining and stuff,
They join. Yeah, correct.
break down in order to join.
Kind of.
If it like chips off, it breaks it down. Like I had like
Kind of.
a bit of my kneecap chip off.
Yeah, kind of sometimes.
Oh, repair.
Yeah, to help repair them. Yeah, to help replace. Say you need calcium, it will leach out. If you need calcium for the other functions in your body, remember that you have like all of these different cellular functions that require calcium. If you're not eating enough calcium, where's your body going to get it? It's going to leach it right out of your bones. And that's what those cells do. They also, if you just, maybe you just have too much, maybe somehow you got too much calcium over here, over there, they're just helping maintain, like they're moderating the situation. All right, so joints contain connective tissue that holds bone together. Joints permit bones to move without damaging each other. So what kind of joint exists in your cranium and in your sacrum? Does anybody know what that's called, Claire?
Immovable.
Immovable. All right, so this is hard to see on him, but I suggest you check him out after class and get a really good look. But if you remember with the deer skulls, you may have seen it too. there are all these little wiggly lines up here where if he was a baby, when he was a baby, okay, they were not connected. All of these different plates, one here, one here, one here, one here, they were not connected.
You can feel like a baby's head.
Yes, you can
Yeah.
feel the different skull plate. Why? What is the reason? Why would you?
Brain broke.
Why?
So that it can fit through the pelvis. So
Yeah,
it's big.
absolutely. A big hard skull is going to have a really hard time getting through a pelvis, through a birth canal, and all the way out. Baby skulls just squish. Babies are actually vaginally delivered babies are born with a little pointy head, and the little pointy thing, they actually call it a caput. And it's the first thing that you see when it comes out because it gets squeezed the most. It's usually like right in here. And then it rounds out. You just leave them alone. It'll round out on its own. If you leave a baby like some babies in orphanages have had this situation in certain places where they don't have the ability to pick them up, they lay on their back too long, the back of their skull becomes very flat because that it's flexible back there. They're not connected and it will just squish into a flat situation and they'll be flat on the back. And then have you seen the little kids that run around with the helmets? Like the weirdly shaped ones, like I might have a piece here, but no piece there. That's what they're doing. Those little skull plates have not quite positioned themselves perfectly. And because of that, you're getting like not a round head. So they're trying to make their head round with those little skulls. Little helmets, sorry. Yeah, the little helmet babies. It just makes their skull round. It puts pressure on the part that's going the wrong direction and moves it so that it gets fixed. So anyway, so this is an immovable joint. These are joints because these are two bones coming, they come like this, they fuse together, right? Same thing back here with your sacrum. There's a bunch of bones here that are fused. Okay, so that's also an immovable joint. It's a joint because it's more than one bone and it's together, right? Now, what are the what are vertebrae? How do we describe them? Yeah, so these are going to be semi-movable. So if you think about it, you can turn right and you can turn left and you can bend over and you can even bend backwards. Some people like contortionists can like really bend. You ever seen those girls that like the little girls in the circus that'll like do? I went and saw Cirque du Soleil Dralion. Dralion was, y'all would have been itty bitty when Dralion came out. But there was like an 8 or 9-year-old girl in there who was a contortionist, and she put herself in the craziest positions I've ever seen. It was wild.
Isn't there that
Yeah.
one archer that was on like America's Got Talent and she's a contortionist?
Oh yeah, I don't know, but probably. But if you look, there's a limit. And the limit is because all these little processes on your vertebra, you can only bend these things together, but so much before they run into each other. And then that's as far as you can go. So they're movable, but they're semi-movable. And then what do we call the ones like the ball and socket or the pivot or the hinge? Ridley? Those are your freely movable. So those are your most obvious joints. Elbows, knees, toes, fingers, right? So those look like this. So your freely movable joints are things like pivot joint, which is in your neck, right? You can pivot. You've got saddle joints in this part of your hand. Like think about how you can kind of move your finger like that, right? And then you've got plane joints, the bottom of your tibia, where it comes in contact with the top of your foot bones. That kind of, it slides a little, right? And then you've got hinge joints. These are the obvious ones, elbows, knees. Your condyloid joints are the ones like in your wrist here. They all kind of wiggle together, right? And then you've got ball and socket in your shoulder and in your hip, right? So what is it that holds bone to bone? What connective tissue, Isabella? Ligaments hold bone to bone, okay? And so for him, they had to put some wires in here, right? But in you've got ligaments, and most of your joints have more than one ligament working, okay? What's it called if you tear or snap a ligament? What's that injury called? Probably somebody in here has done it. ACL is one you can tear, but that is a specific ligament that's been torn. That's an anterior cruciate ligament in your knee, right? When you tear or break a ligament, it's a sprain. Okay, so if you've had a sprain, that's what you've done. Here's the thing. If you break this arm, just break it, snap the bone, okay? We can put the bone back together. We can align it. We can put it in cast, and it will rejoin because new growth will come into the break area. If you snap the ligament in here, you're done. It does not regenerate. Done. Bye-bye. No more ligament. If you tear it or snap it, they don't regenerate. So, for example, I jacked up my right ankle when I was about 15, like real bad. I completely snapped one of the ligaments and I tore one of the others. So what's holding my ankle together are the remaining ligaments and the muscles around it. So sometimes I'll just be walking and I'll be on the floor because that whole foot will just roll and I'll just whoop down and I'll go because it's never going to be as strong as it was before. So sometimes people will say, better to break it than sprain it. And that's what they mean because although a break is a really serious injury, at least it will heal, whereas a sprain, you just kind of adjust. Like the inflammation goes down, you adjust.
If you sprain it, it's like unfixable. It's like you're done.
Yeah, the inflammation will go down with time. So the pain and the swelling will go away. But you have to now, the other structures in that area of your body will have to compensate because it's done.
Yeah.
Like, it's
That's
done.
what Kathy's like. Both of her ankles are really bad.
Who's?
Kathy, my older
Oh,
sister.
yeah. Yeah, that'll happen. All right. So let's see, what do fractures look like? We have many kinds of fractures. Now, note for one thing here. Hold on. One thing to note.
My sister like broke both of these bones.
I saw that X-ray. It was terrifying. Yes, yeah, it was terrifying. So
it was like
trampoline.
She was doing a back handspring on the trampoline. And
yeah, she snapped them both. Yeah, and that's uncommon to do them both like that.
It was
when I've seen that, I've seen that a couple times, and it's a gymnastics injury. It's a men's gymnastics injury, and it happens on high bar. Your grip, the leather grip, rolls up on itself, and it locks to the bar. So the grip stops moving, your hand stops moving, but your body's going, and it will snap both of them like real fast, like that. Yeah, Ellie's X-ray was terrifying. Her mom sent it to me. She's like, "Look what my daughter did." I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, it was awful. They were completely broken. So they're going to mention in here first certain types of fractures, and then they're going to go on with other types. But I want you to know that they're going to say there are traumatic and pathologic. The pathologic ones are that's like because you have disease, you have osteoporosis or something else, and then you have traumatic, which means there was an injury. But then they're going to describe them by like buckle, green stick, spiral. You can have those, basically your pathologic and your traumatic would be your first descriptor, and then all the other thing would be your second. So it would be like a traumatic spiral fracture, if that makes sense. All right, so what are fractures?
Is a medical or broken bone.
Basically, if it's broken at all, it's a fracture.
Characterized by a partial or complete break in the continuity of the bone. Most human bones are strong and can generally withstand strong impact or forces. However, bones break when the pressure or force applied to them is more than what they can normally withstand, or if there is something wrong with them. Bones are the skeleton of the body that allows us to interact with our environment. They act as attachment points for muscles, which allow for running, jumping, sitting, kneeling, grasping, and lifting. As we age, the bones become brittle, and the force they can handle or withstand reduces. This increases the risk of fracture. Immediate medical care is needed after a bone is fractured, as serious fractures can have severe complications if not treated immediately. Complications include damage to the blood vessels and infections of the bone or surrounding tissue. Types of fracture. Traumatic fracture. This type of fracture is sustained from a trauma, such as fractures due to a fall, accident, fight, etc. Pathologic fracture. This type is as a result of an underlying condition or disease that has already weakened the bone, such as cancer or osteoporosis. Closed fracture. It is also a simple fracture. In a closed fracture, the broken bone does not break the underlying skin. Open fracture. In this type, the broken bone tears the skin and may thus expose the bone to contamination. With an open fracture, there is a high risk of infection. Transverse fracture. A fracture where the break is in a straight line across the bone. Spiral fracture. A fracture where at least one part of the bone has been twisted. Oblique fracture. A fracture where the break is diagonal across the bone. Impacted fracture. A fracture where one fragment of bone goes into another. Bone fragments are driven into each other. Avulsion fracture. A fracture where a fragment of bone is separated or pulled off by a ligament or tendon. Complete fracture. A fracture in which the bone breaks completely. Types of complete fractures are comminuted fracture. Bone fragments breaks into 3 or more pieces. Single fracture. Bone fragment breaks in one place into 2 pieces. Non-displaced fracture. Bone fragments breaks into pieces and stay in their normal alignment. Displaced fracture. Bone fragment breaks into pieces that shift off their normal alignment. Incomplete fracture. The bone doesn't break completely. Incomplete fractures are more common in children whose bones are softer and more elastic. Types of incomplete fractures are green stick fracture. The bone partly fractures on one side, while the rest of the bone is bent. Hairline fracture. A partial fracture of the bone, usually in a thin crack. Torus or buckle fracture. The bone is broken on one side, and a bump or raised buckle grows on the other side. Causes: falls, direct blows, or injuries from sports, osteoporosis, repetitive forces caused by running, automobile accidents. Risk factors may include being old, smoking, alcoholism, use of steroids, being physically inactive. Symptoms: intense pain in the site of the injury, swelling, bruising, and redness in the injured area, deformity in the injured area, difficulty moving or supporting the weight with the affected area. Diagnosis and treatment. The doctor will ask about symptoms, examine the injury, and look for other injuries that may have occurred. The American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons provides that x-rays are the most common method of diagnosis.
He's napping during his x-ray.
They help in visualizing the bone and revealing breaks and other signs of damage, as well as in determining the location and type of the fracture. In cases where x-ray alone is insufficient, CT scan or MRI may be used. Treatment. Treatment options depend on the type and location of the fracture. The first goal of treatment is to try to put the broken pieces back into their proper position and stabilize them as they heal. Pieces of broken bone should be kept immobile until they are mended. A cast may be used to stabilize the broken bone. The cast may be made of fiber or glass, and it will help stabilize the injured area and keep broken pieces compact until they heal. Complex injuries may require surgery.
Okay, so who has broken a bone? Oh, really? About half of you. Okay. Let's see. Hold on. Stop. What'd you break?
I broke my elbow and I just
That's fun. Who else broke something? What'd you break?
Both big toes and probably 2 fingers.
And what they do for those? Did they cast them or they just tape them?
Fingers taped,
Yeah.
toes, boot.
Yeah. What'd you break?
Leg.
Your leg. Which part of your leg? Oh, down there. Okay. How about you?
Fractured my pinky toe.
Who else? What'd you do, Grace? Your arm? Finger?
Jaw.
Yours was a toe. Yeah, I know.
my sister's broken over 20 of her bones.
She is such a mess. Like
She
really
slammed her foot into a wall and then it just buckle fractured all the way.
all the way back. Yeah, that's fun. That's real fun. Okay. How about you?
James had a green stick fracture.
Yeah, those are common.
Because he either fell or jumped out of his loft bed
Oh yeah.
when he was little.
Yeah.
And,
So I used to have a student that was like the ultimate daredevil, and he did things like climb on a roof and then jump on a mattress from there, that sort of situation. And he was always breaking things. He actually missed some class because he was in the hospital because he jumped out of a tree. That kid was wild. He was just absolutely. I told his mother, I'm like, I'm sorry for your copays.
Dad, he was riding a bike, I think. This is while I was born. He dislocated his shoulder and he fractured his skull.
That isn't good.
From an eye socket mostly.
Oh yeah, your orbit. Yeah, the craziest break I ever saw happen is when not long after we moved to Georgia, we had a friend that lived on Lake Lanier, and we went and he had a boat and he liked to water ski, and he was think it was wakeboarding at the time. But you know how, if you've ever been, you know that there's like there's a single rope and it splits into two ropes and there's a handle. So it makes like this little triangle shape and you hold onto the handle, right? And it was the last run of the day. It was a great day. And he was like, woo, and he was out there and he's doing stuff and he was done. So he let go of the little handle like you're supposed to do and put his hands up, but it came back and it caught his arm and it snatched and it broke the process off the top of his ulna, just snapped it off. And he came out of the water like, and we're all, oh my goodness. So once you've broken them, how do they heal? This is actually this is what happens in the healing process.
When a broken bone or fracture occurs, the body leaps into action to begin the healing process. When the bone breaks, it bleeds. The blood collects and forms a mass of blood known as a hematoma. The hematoma is rich in cells that are capable of growing new cartilage and bone. These cells set to work building a callus that bridges across the fracture site to hold the bone fragments together. The callus is at first more cartilage than bone. It is known as a soft callus. This soft callus gradually begins to fill with bone, evolving into a more stable, hard callus. After the hard callus has formed, the bone may not look like it did before the fracture. It may look slightly crooked. It probably has a large bony callus. Over months and even years, the bone begins to remodel based on the stresses it is exposed to. Remodeling allows the bone to take on a shape similar to its original shape. Problems can occur to disrupt appropriate fracture healing. Displacement. If the ends of the fracture fragments are pushed apart, a callus cannot form between them and they cannot heal appropriately. This is why displaced fractures need to be reduced or set. Instability. If there is too much motion at the fracture site, the rigid bony callus cannot set up. This may result in a fibrous non-union, meaning that a soft callus is able to bridge the fragments together, but it never heals because a hard callus cannot form. This is why fractures often need to be immobilized with casts, splints, or surgical fixation. Poor blood supply. If the blood supply to the fracture site is poor, there may not be enough of the cells present that carry the tools necessary to build the callus. This can result in a non-union, meaning that the fracture never forms a strong callus and does not heal. Certain bones in the body are known to have vulnerable blood supplies. Fractures in these bones are treated with extra caution.
It's better. It's on. I'm standing over there.
Y'all leave the door open for a long time.
No, it may have been a
Seems like
little,
that.
may have been a little crack, but all right. So now we move on to muscular system. He's not scary, right? No, there was a TV show when your parents were little, when people my age were little. I can't remember the name of the show, but the guy that hosted it was named like Mr. Body, and he wore like a stretchy bodysuit that looked like that. He was kind of terrifying. You can look him up. He was creepy. Anyway, so we have three main types of muscle tissue. Somebody tell me what the three main types are. Okay, Barrett.
Cardiac, smooth, and skeletal.
Very good. Your skeletal is going to be your voluntary muscle that attaches to your bones, right? Then your smooth is going to be involuntary muscle that is involved in breathing and digestion. And then lastly, your cardiac is going to be only found in the heart, and obviously it's involuntary. So looking at these three types of tissues here and considering what you just did in lab, do we think this first one is skeletal, smooth, or cardiac? Who votes for skeletal for the first image? Okay, who votes for smooth for the first image? And who votes for cardiac? Okay, that's going to be cardiac. All right, cardiac is kind of looks, it's wiggly looking. It looks like tree branches, but it's striated. You see the little red dashes on it? That's striated muscle, okay? Now, the smooth, or let's see what's next. Oh, no. Well, let's go to the next order. This next one. Is this one going to be smooth, skeletal? Which one? Who says skeletal? And who says smooth? Okay, so this is skeletal muscle, and it is also striated muscle. So that means the last one is smooth. And what does it not have that the other two have?
Right.
It's not striated, correct. So if you look at it under a microscope and it's not striated, it's going to be your smooth muscle. And then your cardiac is just not going to be arranged in the same way as your skeletal muscles are going to be arranged. All right, so muscles are joined to bones by what kind of connective tissue? We said bone to bone was ligament. So Lucas, tendons. All right, we got tendons. Whatever, I'll give it to both of you. Okay, tendons. All right, and you just looked at tendons and stuff in your chicken wings, right? So you saw tendons in there. This is a fun one. Have anybody ever done this trick? You put your thumb and your pinky together and you kind of flex your hands around, and you might see, the other way to do it is to kind of make a fist and flex it, and you might see this particular tendon pop up. Some people don't have it. About 10 to 15% of the population doesn't have it. It's palmus longus is a tiny little muscle that runs here. That's the tendon that goes to it. So some people it's really pronounced, and in me it's weird. It's like I have two on this side, but one on the other side. And some people will have one and none. You know, they'll have their arms will be different. So yeah, it's this guy here. You can make it pop up if you flex the right way. You might see it, or you might not see it because you might not have it. About 10 to 15% of the population does not have that little muscle, so they won't have that tendon. It's a very tiny muscle, so like missing it isn't going to like totally wreck your life. So skeletal muscles generate force and they produce movement by pulling body parts as they contract. So muscles work together in what? Everybody? Pairs. All right, so I said this at lab. If you start with your right angle, if you decrease your angle, what muscle is tightening? What muscle is contracting? The extensor or the flexor?
Oh, it's the biceps or the.
Well, in this case, yes, specifically the biceps, yes. But if you have a flexor and an extensor that work in pairs, so if you are decreasing the angle, which one is contracting? The flexor is contracting, so the extensor is doing what? Relaxing. So then if you increase the angle, the flexor is relaxing and the extensor is contracting, right? The extensor extends, right? The flexor pulls in. But yes, correct, it was bicep. I was using my bicep there. All right. Very good. So this kind of shows you how the actual contraction works. Now, if you've done physical science, we talked about this, and we'll talk about it a little more in a few minutes. But there is a specific tool that actually works and functions the exact same way that muscle fibers function. Does anybody remember what the tool was? We talked about it in physical science, if anybody did physical science. Yeah, it's a specific tool.
Like a lab.
Like a tool, find it in the garage. Do you remember?
A lever.
Not a lever. It's a ratchet. If you know how a ratchet works, where you get teeth that kind of lock in, that's exactly how your muscle fibers function at a down at a molecular level. So here's how it works. You get actin and myosin, and it's
Hey everyone, my name's Heather, and today I'm going to talk to you about the sliding filament theory. When you look at our skeletal muscle fibers,
I don't know why she says skeletal, just ignore her.
They are striated in nature.
It is skeletal, she's weird.
They have bands. Well, if you look at muscle fibers even closer, skeletal muscle fibers are actually formed by two different filaments that give it this appearance. The first filament is known as actin, and it is very thin, also known as the thin filament. The second filament is myosin, and it is much thicker than actin because it contains a bunch of myosin heads. So this is also known as the thick filament. Muscle contraction is initiated by the brain via an action potential. This action potential causes an influx of calcium ions that bind to troponin, a protein on the actin filament. This causes a conformational change in actin and exposes the myosin binding sites. I find it easiest to begin with detachment. This is when the myosin head detaches from actin. In order for detachment to occur, an ATP molecule must bind to the myosin head, and when this happens, myosin detaches from actin and goes into a resting state. The next step is known as hydrolysis. In hydrolysis, the ATP molecule is split into an ADP molecule and a phosphate molecule. This causes the myosin head to change into a ready position and bind to actin. Since the actin filament has undergone a conformational change and the myosin heads are in the correct position, a cross bridge can occur between the two filaments. The myosin heads bind to the actin filament. Next, the bound ADP and phosphate detach, which causes myosin to forcefully change back to its relaxed shape. This is known as a power stroke. This brings us back to where we began, detachment. So to refresh and bring things into a full circle, another ATP molecule binds to myosin, causing it to detach and return to its resting state. The cycle continues until the brain ceases movement, preventing an action potential. Therefore, action returns to its normal shape and no binding can occur. Let's sum this up. Beginning with detachment, ATP binds to the myosin head, causing it to detach. Next, during hydrolysis, the ATP splits into ADP and a phosphate, which allows the myosin heads to be ready to bind. A cross-bridge occurs because both the actin and myosin filaments are in the right positions to do so. And finally, the ADP and phosphate are then lost, causing myosin to perform a power stroke. Thank you so much for watching
So
this video.
did you notice
If
when
you
it
liked
did the power stroke, the top filament moved, right? So it's literally like it catches, it'll come along, it catches in here, it pulls that back, it comes down. Now there's the next little spot. It comes up, it catches in here, it pulls it back. So just like a ratchet, it grabs the next bit, and that's how your muscles contract, because that happens extremely rapidly, millions of times throughout all the different muscle fibers that you've got going in that particular muscle. So some people are really strong, but they don't have huge muscles, and other people have huge muscles, like the big bodybuilder types, right? You can have a muscle that is smaller and is equally strong to a really big one because there are some genetics at play there. But some people's entire purpose isn't maybe to increase strength. Their goal is to make their muscles bigger, right? We've all known these people, right? We've seen them or we've met them or whatever. So how do you do that? What makes muscles get bigger? Does anybody know what makes them get bigger? Yeah. You have to damage them. You have to break the muscle. You have to damage the muscle in order for the muscle to grow bigger. So this tells you how to do it. So if you want to get buff, you want to get all beefcake, this is how you get all beefcake, right? Yeah.
Muscles. We have over 600 of them. They make up between 1/3 and 1/2 of our body weight. And along with connective tissue, they bind us together, hold us up, and help us move. And whether or not bodybuilding is your hobby, muscles need your constant attention because the way you treat them on a daily basis determines whether they will wither or grow. Say you're standing in front of a door, ready to pull it open. Your brain and muscles are perfectly poised to help you achieve this goal. First, your brain sends a signal to motor neurons inside your arm. When they receive this message, they fire, causing muscles to contract and relax, which pull on the bones in your arm and generate the needed movement. The bigger the challenge becomes, the bigger the brain's signal grows, and the more motor units it rallies to help you achieve your task. But what if the door is made of solid iron? At this point, your arm muscles alone won't be able to generate enough tension to pull it open, so your brain appeals to other muscles for help. You plant your feet, tighten your belly, and tense your back, generating enough force to yank it open. Your nervous system has just leveraged the resources you already have, other muscles, to meet the demand. While all this is happening, your muscle fibers undergo another kind of cellular change. As you expose them to stress, they experience microscopic damage, which in this context is a good thing. In response, the injured cells release inflammatory molecules called cytokines that activate the immune system to repair the injury. This is when the muscle building magic happens. The greater the damage to the muscle tissue, the more your body will need to repair itself. The resulting cycle of damage and repair eventually makes muscles bigger and stronger as they adapt to progressively greater demands. Since our bodies have already adapted to most everyday activities, those generally don't produce enough stress to stimulate new muscle growth. So to build new muscle, a process called hypertrophy, our cells need to be exposed to higher workloads than they're used to.
In fact, if you don't continuously expose your muscles to some resistance, they will shrink, a process known as muscular atrophy. In contrast, exposing the muscle to a high degree of tension, especially while the muscle is lengthening, also called an eccentric contraction, generates effective conditions for new growth. However, muscles rely on more than just activity to grow. Without proper nutrition, hormones, and rest, your body would never be able to repair damaged muscle fibers. Protein in our diet preserves muscle mass by providing the building blocks for new tissue in the form of amino acids. Adequate protein intake, along with naturally occurring hormones like insulin-like growth factor and testosterone, help shift the body into a state where tissue is repaired and grown. This vital repair process mainly occurs when we're resting, especially at night while sleeping. Gender and age affect this repair mechanism, which is why young men with more testosterone have a leg up in the muscle building game. Genetic factors also play a role in one's ability to grow muscle. Some people have more robust immune reactions to muscle damage and are better able to repair and replace damaged muscle fibers, increasing their muscle building potential. The body responds to the demands you place on it. If you tear your muscle bone, right, rest, and repeat, you'll create the conditions to make your muscles as big and strong as possible. It is with muscles as it is with life. Meaningful growth requires challenge and stress.
You have to damage your muscles in order for them to get bigger. To damage them, and then you have to supply the right nutrients and the right amount of rest. And that's how you build big buff beefcake muscles, right? So now let's look at the integumentary system. So this is mostly skin, right? Which is your largest organ. So your integumentary system is going to serve as a barrier against infection. Yeah.
Another way to muscle mass is to take performance.
So there's that. So yeah, certain drugs, certain medications can definitely increase your performance, which can make it easier for you to continue doing those things, right? And this is also why athletes will drink protein shakes and things like that. They're trying to rebuild the muscles they've damaged. So that's part of the reason too. So your integumentary system serves as a barrier against infection and injury. Can you imagine if you walked around without any skin, how quickly you would catch an infection, right? It would be really, really bad. Yep. And helps to regulate your body temperature, obviously. You get a little layer of fat under your skin that's keeping you from getting really, really cold. Removes waste in the form of sweat, right? You get some salts and stuff that are removed in that process. Gathers information, all your little sensory receptors that are in your skin, right? And produces vitamin D. You have to be out in the sun in order to synthesize vitamin D, and it happens in your skin. So like for those of us that don't do well in the sun, sometimes taking extra vitamin D is helpful. Too long in the sun and I'm a bad way, so I take extra vitamin D because I can't be out there enough to get enough vitamin D on my own. So skin and its related structures, hair, nails, and several types of glands make up your integumentary system. What's the outermost layer of your skin? It's dead. It's dead skin. It's on top. Eunice.
Epidermis.
That's your epidermis. Where else did we see that word this year? Remember?
The outside of plants.
Yes, good. Yes, exactly the same word. The outer layer of a plant's stem or leaf. You have it right there as well. So what's that thick layer that's beneath the epidermis? This has your capillaries, your nerve endings, your sweat glands, your hair follicles. Isabella? That's your dermis, right? Epi meaning above your dermis. Now it makes sense, right? And then what's that deep layer that's mostly fat, connective tissue, but it also, and it's insulating. What's that deep, deep layer, you know? Underdermis would be a great name for it. I wish it was. Yep. So this is going to be your subcutaneous layer. Okay. And then what's the fiber that causes waterproofing? Do we know what the name of it is? It's a particular protein fiber that causes, do you know? Keratin. Yes, keratin. All right. So you're going to find keratin in your hair. It's mostly keratin. You're going to find keratin in your nails. They do keratin treatments now. You can get keratin treatment for your hair. Makes it real slick and silky and shiny, right? So keratin's in your hair. Keratin's in your nails. But it's also in your skin. If you stick your hand in a swimming pool, you don't absorb it like a sponge, right? Like you don't just like suck up the water because Yeah, but you're somewhat waterproof, right? And part of that is oils in your skin. Another part of that is the keratin in your skin. And then what are the cells called that produce the melanin pigment? Ridley? Melanocytes. You got it. All right. So think for a minute. What's the purpose of the pigment in your skin? Why do we need it?
Protect against the sun.
Protect against the sun is the main thing, right? So we need some of that stuff we get from the sun. Like clearly we need to be out there to produce, what do we need to synthesize in the sun? I just said it a minute ago. Vitamin D, right? You got to be out there in the sun. But we know that some of those UVA, UVB rays are really dangerous, right? You can get skin cancer from them. So we have pigment in our skin that helps protect us from that. Think about globally, okay? Globally. People whose people whose ancestors go back to living along the equator, are they darker or lighter complected? Do they have more or less melanin? More. Okay. How much sun are they getting? A lot of sun. Okay, now think about the people who live like up by the North Pole. The Swedish and the Norwegian, do they have more or less melanin?
Yes.
Okay, and how much sun do they get? Not much, right? So, part of your skin tone has to do with where your ancestors came from and how much sunlight they were exposed to within a day, how much protection they needed from that, or how much ability they needed to absorb as much of that as possible.
That's why we have different skinned people. Right?
Yes, exactly. That is exactly why we have people with different skin tones. And now, it's a much more global environment. People are mixing, whereas maybe in the past when travel wasn't so popular or accessible, really, travel wasn't accessible, people didn't mix as much. So you didn't see as much of a combination as we have now. But yes,
Is it a bad thing to have more melanin if you're not exposed to like as much sunlight?
Not really. I mean, I would like if you were very dark complected and you lived up in Norway or whatever like that. I mean, I think our modern life the way it is, it probably wouldn't affect you too much. It might have 1,000 years ago. It might have been a little more difficult then. Certainly the other way around, though, would be a real problem. If you dropped me on the equator, like in Africa or South America, I would be lobster red in half an hour and I would get sun poisoning and I would die and I would be miserable. Like I can't look at me. I don't even try. My sister-in-law always jokes, "You rock the porcelain." That's what she always said. Like I am 100% porcelain. Like, don't put me out there in the sun. I'm not good at it. So your dermis, which lies beneath your epidermis, this is where you have your blood vessels, your collagen, all that good stuff, nerve endings. It's also where your fingerprints are formed. They're formed in your dermis. What's the purpose of a fingerprint besides being able to tell whether or not you murdered somebody or robbed a bank? What's the purpose?
You know, grip on the thing.
It's grip. Yeah, it's grip. Like, and for creatures that really need grip, like geckos, their little hands look like Velcro almost. Like it's wild when you look at them under a microscope. So what secretes the oily substance that we call sebum that's released onto the surface of the skin? Sebaceous glands, right? And these can easily turn into cysts. You can get sebaceous cysts really easily. They'll swell up under your skin, they fill up with that sebum. And if you've ever, okay, now's the time to admit it, all right? Who watches Dr. Pimple Popper? Okay, at least two of us admit it. She's fun. If you've never watched her, she's fun. I don't know what it is. There's a certain satisfaction we humans get out of like popping zits and this and things. Like that's why there's entire YouTube channels of it. I don't know why. But anyway, she works on, you see these a lot with her, but they fill up with like a cheesy substance. It doesn't smell real good. And you can remove them and then they're gone. But until you remove them, they continue to grow. And if they're open on the surface, then you can actually extrude the stuff by squeezing on it. It's like a never-ending zit. It doesn't heal. It just keeps expressing cheese. It's weird. Yeah. Real fun. So what is it then that happens when you get that oil and dead skin cells and they plug up hair follicles? Yeah. Acne. Oh, yes. And being a bunch of teenagers, you all know how this goes, right? So we're going to watch a video on how to help with acne because it's certainly everybody deals with it. Even grown people deal with it, but it's certainly more common for teenagers, right? Because of hormone fluctuations. And what do you call the allergic reactions where you get like red welts everywhere? Hives. Yeah. Anybody ever had hives? Ooh, it's gross. Sometimes they really itch. Yeah, yeah, can swell up. There's also a type of hive you can get if you're suddenly exposed to the cold. Like there are some people that can jump in a swimming pool that's cold and come out and they're covered in hives. And it's like, oh, that's fun. Yikes.
Oh,
Right?
wait, that happened to my brother Matt one time.
Yeah.
I don't remember where we were, but
Yeah. So, if you get excessive exposure to ultraviolet light and radiation from the sun, what can you get? Skin cancer. Yeah, we've talked about this before, right? You don't want this. Like tanning beds, not a good situation. They can be like, okay, for people that have psoriasis, for example, a little UV is good, but there's a fine line between a little UV and too much UV, and we should definitely be wearing sunscreen. And this little potato man is going to explain to you this little round thing will explain to you why you need sunscreen. I know you probably have anybody have a mom who's like before you go out the door, but I understand that's me. I'm that mom, right? It's yeah, good. It's a good thing. Oh, he's got a moisturizer. Oh, look, and it has a sunscreen in it. How nice of him.
Buying a home is exciting.
Yeah.
But it comes with a lot of decisions.
Yes, it does.
Color to pick.
Yeah.
Which
not
one?
that one. It's not that.
Yeah. Nope. We all agree. That was a bad choice.
Not yellow.
Most of us think of the sun as our friend. It helps plants grow, keeps us warm, and who doesn't love to lie on the beach on a sunny day?
See, potato man.
But for all of its good qualities, the sun can also be harmful in large amounts. That's why we invented sunscreen. The purpose of sunscreen is to shield the body from the sun's ultraviolet rays, which have several harmful effects, including sunburn, aging, and skin cancer promotion. These rays are separated by their different wavelengths into types such as UVA and UVB, which exert a variety of effects in the skin due to the absorption patterns of chromophores, the parts of the molecules responsible for their color. The primary two chromophores are hemoglobin, found in our red blood cells, and melanin, which gives our skin its pigment. We know that UVB rays cause the skin to burn. The role of UVA rays is less well understood and appears to have an effect on our tanning response, carcinogenesis, and aging. So how does the sunscreen protect us from these rays? There are two basic types of sunscreen, physical and chemical blockers. Physical blockers like zinc oxide or titanium dioxide reflect sun rays by acting as a physical barrier. If you've seen lifeguards with noses covered in white, then you know what this looks like. The same ingredients are primary components of diaper creams, where the goal is also to create a physical barrier. Historically, they haven't always been easy to apply and were conspicuously visible on the skin, but new formulations have made this less of an issue. Chemical blockers, on the other hand, absorb the sun's rays. They deteriorate more quickly than physical sunscreens because their ability to absorb the sun diminishes. Generally, these are more transparent when rubbed on the skin, but some people develop allergic reactions to some of the chemicals. Regardless of the type of sunscreen, all are subjected to testing to determine their sunburn protection factor, or SPF. This is essentially a measure of the protection that the sunscreen will provide from UVB rays before one begins to burn. But even if you don't burn, you still need to use sunscreen, because unless you live in a cave, you're not immune to the effects of the sun. It is true that darker-skinned people and those who tan easily have more built-in protection from sunburns, but they are still vulnerable to the effects of UVA. Children under the age of 6 months, on the other hand, should have almost no sun exposure, as their protective mechanisms are not fully functioning and their skin is more likely to absorb any sunscreen that is applied. Wearing sunscreen helps protect against the development of all three types of skin cancers: basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and melanoma. On a daily basis, the DNA in your cells is developing mutations and errors that are generally handled by machinery within your cells. But ultraviolet rays from the sun lead to mutations that the cell may not be able to overcome, leading to uncontrolled growth and eventual skin cancer. The scariest thing about this is that usually you can't even see it happening until it's too late. But if these concrete risks to your health are not enough to convince you to use sunscreen, there are aesthetic reasons as well. Along with cigarette smoking, sun damage is the leading cause of premature aging. Photoaging from chronic sun exposure leads to a loss of elasticity in the skin. In other words, making it look saggy. Take a look at this truck driver whose left side was chronically exposed to the sun and notice the difference.
They do. Some of them look like that.
Car windows block UVB, the burn rays, but not UVA, the aging rays. It is recommended to use sunscreen daily, but you should pay special attention before prolonged sun exposure, or when at the beach or among snow, since the reflectivity of water and ice amplifies the sun's rays. For these cases, apply about an ounce 15 to 30 minutes before you go out, and once again soon after you get outside. After that, you should reapply every 2 to 3 hours, especially after swimming or sweating. Otherwise, you should wear protective clothing with ultraviolet protection factor, or UPF. Stay in shaded areas such as under trees or an umbrella, and avoid the sun at the peak hours of 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And what's the best kind of sunscreen? Everyone will have their preference, but look for the following things: broad spectrum, SPF of at least 30, and water resistant. A light moisturizer with SPF 30 should be good for daily use. Take note if you decide to use a spray. They take several coats to effectively cover your skin, like painting a wall with a spray can versus a paintbrush. So, enjoy the sun, but enjoy it with sunscreen.
Some people will swear that over like SPF 50, it's no different. Like it's all the same after that. I don't agree with that. And I've seen some studies that also don't agree with that. So like for me, not only do I obviously burn really easily, but one of the biggest lupus triggers is the sun. Like if I get too much exposure to the sun, I'm sick, like very sick. Joints stop working, like can't get off the couch, kind of sick. And the thing that works aside from all the clothing and the shade is the SPF 100 Sport, because it doesn't come off when you sweat. I spray like 4 layers of that on me every 30 minutes and I can manage, but otherwise I can't manage. Like that. And a lot of people, when they do get skin cancer, the most common place, a lot of people find it is on their nose, because obviously this gets exposed to the sun a lot, your face, and it's thinner skin here. And does anybody know how the Mohs surgery works? That's the one they use now. So you'll go to the surgeon and he will numb up your nose, and I'll say nose because that's usually where they do this. And they start shaving, right? And they shave, and then they wrap you up and they send you to the lobby and they look under the microscope. And if they still see cancer, they bring you back and they shave more, and then they wrap you up and send you to the lobby, and they rinse and repeat until they stop seeing cancer. And a good friend of mine had this done in the fall. They went all the way through her nose, all the way into her nasal cavity, all the way through. She had a hole in her face. And she's 4 or 5 years older than me, so not that old. And I think I mentioned this to you before, back when we talked about cancer, when we were talking about things that cause cells to grow wrong. It's the sunburns you get as a kid that cause skin cancer, not the sunburns you get as a child, because skin cancer takes a long time to develop. So it's now that you have to be covered up. Your moms are not crazy. All right, so pimples. How do we not get pimples? Sometimes you can't avoid it. Oh no, are we here again? Is it political season again? Oh God, not this again.
Also known as zits, pimples, spots, blackheads, and whiteheads, is a condition that shows up as different types of red, often irritable bumps on the skin. Teenagers are the most common sufferers because of the hormonal changes that come with growing up. And if your parents had acne as teens, it's more likely that you will too. And in some rare cases, individuals also suffer from acne into their adult years. Today we're going to dive into the world of acne to get a better understanding of the different types of symptoms, get our heads around which individuals are most susceptible and why that is. Welcome to this episode of the infographic show, Why Do We Get Pimples and Zits? According to the National Institute of Arthritis and Musculoskeletal and Skin Diseases, or NIH, an estimated 80% of people between ages 11 and 30 will have acne outbreaks, so it's very common. Most of us will suffer from pimples and zits at some point in our life. It's a condition that affects the skin's oil glands and hair follicles, usually on the face, neck, back, chest, and shoulders. Doctors don't know exactly what causes acne, but they say there are certain things that play a part. These include changes in hormone levels, which occurs during puberty, taking certain medicines, wearing makeup, and hereditary genes. In all cases, taking care of your skin will prevent outbreaks from becoming worse. But what are the other reasons for pimples and zits appearing? One common reason we hear thrown around is that eating chocolate or greasy foods can cause spots. Is that really the case? Let's look more closely at the evidence and see if there's any truth behind the rumor. In 2016, British news outlet The Guardian ran a feature exploring the relationship between greasy foods and acne. They referenced research from a number of sources, including the British Association of Dermatologists, who state that there is little evidence that any foods cause acne, even chocolate and fast food. This confirmed a study by final year medical students at Melbourne University. But research from the British Medical Journal showed that a diet high in dairy, particularly skim milk, can increase the severity of acne. So maybe chocolate is okay, but apparently some foods can cause pimples and zits. Next, we came across a study on the US National Library of Medicine National Institutes of Health conducted in 2014. They wanted to assess the effect of chocolate on acne in males between the ages of 18 and 35. The men were given capsules filled either with pure cocoa or gelatin. Each participant consumed 6 1-ounce capsules in one sitting. The pure cocoa and gelatin were mixed so that the participants consumed different levels of cocoa. Well, if you like chocolate, you won't like the results. People's pimples skyrocketed the days following chocolate consumption, and the study showed that chocolate increases acne by 169%. However, don't go trashing all your candy just yet. Seppa Pusa, who runs acneeinstein.com, a place for rational advice on alternative and natural
rational advice,
picked this study apart. He claims there are a couple of issues with the way it was conducted. Firstly, 14 participants is a very small study group, and small study groups are always prone to errors. Secondly, there was no real control group comparison between cocoa and the placebo gelatin. So does chocolate give you pimples and zits? We couldn't find a definitive answer, as there seems to be arguments for both sides of the debate. But of course, gorging on chocolate is probably not the best dietary idea anyway.
Yeah.
So what are the other causes of pimples and zits? Well, we mentioned at the beginning how hormonal changes while growing up is one of the main causes, and hormone imbalances are at their most extreme when our body goes through puberty. Let's take a look at what happens and why people break out in spots. Girls may begin puberty as early as age 6 to 7, but typically go through it at age 11. Boys begin as early as age 9, but typically go through it around age 12. When a person is going through puberty, according to teenshealth.com, the brain releases a hormone known as gonadotropin-releasing hormone, or GnRH. This hormone travels to the pituitary gland and signals it to release 2 additional hormones that affect a girl or boy's body differently. This results in growth and development, as well as production of hair under the arms and pubic area. This increased production of hormones signals the body to produce more sebum, which is a form of oil that develops in the pores. The excess production can also cause the oil to build up in the hair follicles, which results in pimples and zits. What about adults? Can adults also get pimples and zits? It's much rarer, but yes, some adults do. One of the most common examples is with women who are going through menopause. Again, the changes in hormone activity can affect the way a person's skin protects and regenerates itself. The same effects are often experienced during pregnancy. Stress has also been linked to breakouts of acne. Dr. Alexa Kimball, a professor of dermatology at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, conducted research back in 2003. This research on university students showed that stress could trigger an acne episode, and the greater the stress, the more pronounced the breakout. When we are stressed, our bodies produce more androgens, which is another type of hormone, and again, it leads to an increase in the oil that develops in the pores, and so we get more pimples and zits. Ultimately, there are some clear reasons why we get pimples and zits. The common ones being hormonal changes in the body from puberty, pregnancy, stress, or other physical changes. There are also other possible causes that are linked to our diet and what we eat, but these are still being debated with arguments on both sides. So, what do you think are some other reasons for outbreaks of acne? Let us know in the comments. Also, be sure to...
If nothing else, wash your face, right? Like, actually wash your face with exfoliating stuff, some salicylic acid maybe. Yeah, that stuff. All right, so looky there, we have a lab rat. Your joints even look like components you might find in a hardware store. So now we're back to joints a little bit. This is extra joints, okay? That's basically, we covered what was in your lesson. Now we're adding on some stuff.
Is that AI?
Yeah, oh yeah. So it's no wonder orthopedic surgeons use tools like saws and screws and hammers when they replace worn out joints. What kind of simple machines are in your body? Wind up teeth.
Simple machines in the body. And yes, I'm doing animation.
Okay. Alright. Before we can talk about simple machines in the body, let's look at what a simple machine even is. According to the internet,
What?
a simple machine is a mechanical device that changes the direction or magnitude of a force. Simple machines include levers, pulleys, wheel and axles, screws, wedges, and inclined planes. Okay, let's start with pulleys. A pulley is a simple machine that consists of a grooved wheel with a rope or cable wrapped around it. Now, there's only one example for this, and it is the knee. See, the quadriceps femoris extends on the leg and connects to our feet and lower legs. Next is screws, which is an inclined plane wrapped around the cylinder. You might think there couldn't possibly be screws in the body, but you'd be wrong. Apparently, there's a bone at the top of the spinal column called the axial bone that acts as a screw. Wheel and axle is next. I couldn't think of a good transition. Anyways, wheel and axle are basically two cylinders that rotate around a common axis at different radiuses. The rotator cuff at the top of your arm is a wheel and axle, and allows your arm to rotate around. Second to last, we now have wedges. Wedges are two inclined planes moving together. A good outside example is an axe. In the body, we have teeth to serve as our wedges. And finally, levers. Levers are used to lift heavy weights with the least amount of effort. Three good examples for this are seesaws, pliers, scissors. Levels are the most prevalent simple machine in the body. To use some examples from the book, the muscles and joints in your neck, the ball of your foot and your calf muscle, and your elbow and biceps are all levers. In all those examples, the bone is the fulcrum and the muscles are the input force. So, that's about it. Was that 3 minutes? Hopefully it was. Because this is
simple machines. So we talked about how the actin and myosin in fibers in your muscles act like a ratchet as well, right? So there's a lot of like very mechanical stuff going on, right, in your body. So this is going to show you the sliding thing one more time, but it's less the chemical and more where you can actually physically see it happen, like a ratchet.
Ready for it all.
Good for you.
Okay. Quite the go-getter when you're running your own business.
That's cute.
People find home for it too.
Okay.
Muscles. They're quite magnificent. The muscular system consists of muscles, and often when we think of muscles, we think about certain ones that you can identify right under the skin, like biceps or triceps. But muscles are so much more than that. This video is not going to focus on the names of all kinds of different muscles, but more about muscle tissue and how muscle contraction works, the actin-myosin cycling. First, let's talk about muscle tissue. Muscle tissue is made up of muscle fibers. These fibers are the muscle cells, and they have structure that aids in their function. There are 3 types of muscle tissue we'll discuss. Cardiac muscle tissue, like its name suggests, it's in the heart. The muscle fibers are branched and striated or striped. Each fiber has a nucleus. At the ends of the fibers, you'll find something called intercalated discs. These are really important because they're involved in helping the cardiac muscle tissue contract in an organized, wave-like pattern. This muscle tissue control is involuntary. That is, you do not consciously control it. Smooth muscle tissue. It's smooth, really just meaning here it doesn't have striations or stripes. Each fiber has one nucleus, and each fiber is spindle-shaped, meaning they are wide in the middle and then taper off at both ends. You'll find them in the digestive system, in arteries and veins, in the bladder, in the eyes, changing the iris size. They're also involuntary. Skeletal muscle tissue. This is the one you think about with biceps or triceps because skeletal muscle is what attaches to bone or skin and is involved with voluntary control, meaning you can consciously control it. You can choose to pick up that biology textbook. If you could zoom in to see these skeletal muscle fibers are striped or striated, the fibers are long cylinders that are multinucleated, fancy term for multiple nuclei. All muscle tissue have some characteristics to mention. It can stretch or extend, extensibility, it can retract back to its starting length, elasticity. Muscle tissue also has excitability. That means that these cells have the ability to be stimulated. And in the case of muscle tissue, their membranes can have electrical changes and send action potentials. Muscle tissue also has the ability to contract or contractility. There are some differences in how the contraction happens in the 3 tissue types. For the rest of this video, we're really going to focus on that last tissue mentioned, skeletal muscle. Let's look a little bit about how they're named, how they're arranged, and how they contract. Many skeletal muscles are named by their location or their shape. Many have Latin or Greek root words in them, so checking out a root word definition list can be really helpful. For example, rectus femoris, it's a muscle on the thigh, or rectus abdominis, that's a muscle on the abdomen. The Greek letter delta looks like a triangle, which is a fitting name for deltoids, a triangular shaped muscle. There are some beautiful diagrams of skeletal muscles where you can explore the many muscle names and locations. As we mentioned, many skeletal muscles can pull on bones. The part that attaches to the bone that will be moved is called the insertion, and the part that attaches to a fixed part of the bone is called the origin. There could be several muscles involved in a single action. The main muscle doing the work, the prime mover, is called the agonist, whereas antagonists are muscles that do the opposite action, which is
flexor extensor,
or keeping position. If we zoom into some skeletal muscle at the cellular level, how does it do what it does? How does it contract? This is probably the most exciting part of the video. Okay, so imagine you have some skeletal muscle like the biceps muscle. That muscle is made up of many muscle fibers, which remember are muscle cells. By the way, some of these cells are big. Of course, generally cells are microscopic, but these muscle cells can have lengths up to 30 centimeters long. Anyway, inside a muscle fiber are multiple myofibrils, which are long cylinders. Each myofibril has sections that repeat called sarcomeres. And it's the arrangement of these sarcomeres that contribute to the skeletal muscle's striated look. There's a lot to a sarcomere, and that's where we're going to focus. So the sarcomere has a protein known as actin. Actin makes up what is known as thin filaments. The sarcomere also has a protein called myosin. Myosin makes up thick filaments. To try to remember which one is which, I try to remember that the word thin is almost in the word actin, minus the H, so close enough, help me remember. Anyways, both of these are essential in causing muscle contraction. And a sliding filament model of muscle contraction. Now, as we often tell you, we're going to do a simplified version. When you're ready for more to explore, check out our video description. Okay, so we have actin, thin filaments. We have myosin, thick filaments. We have these Z lines here where a sarcomere ends, and these Z lines are where the thin filaments attach. The thick filaments are held by accessory proteins in this area called the M line. The big, super important concept here is this. The sarcomere must shorten for muscles to contract, but the thick and thin filaments themselves do not shorten. So the way that is going to happen is that we're going to slide past each other, and they do. When the sarcomere contracts, the thin filaments will be pulled by the thick filaments towards the center. There is overlap of the thin and thick filaments. Z lines will be moved closer together. How are they doing that? So let's zoom into this here, showing a thin filament on top, that's actin, thick filament on bottom, that's myosin. Myosin has structures here called myosin heads, hundreds of them actually, but we're just going to focus on one. And here we show the myosin head is bound to ATP. It hydrolyzes the ATP. Remember, hydrolyzing results in ADP and a phosphate, which are both still bound to the myosin head. The myosin head can now bind to the actin. We call this a cross bridge. The myosin head performs a power stroke, which will also involve the release of ATP and the phosphate. Power stroke meaning the thin filament slides towards that sarcomere center. A new ATP molecule binds the myosin head, and that is what lets the myosin head detach. Without ATP, the myosin head would not detach. This is actually the reason for rigor mortis, how muscles can be rigid after an organism dies, is the organism is no longer producing ATP. ATP is needed for the myosin to separate from the actin. So during muscle contraction, you can imagine all these hundreds of cross bridges forming and breaking and power strokes happening in each sarcomere throughout the time of a muscle contraction. It's popular in bio to compare the myosin heads to tiny little oars of a boat. And because there would be some attached at any given time during a contraction, it prevents the actin from slipping back to its original position. But there's more. A muscle isn't always contracting. There is regulation in that it's not just cycle after cycle. A lot of this regulation involves the ability of the myosin heads to bind to the actin in the first place. The actin has something called tropomyosin on it. It's a regulatory protein, and it blocks the myosin binding sites on the actin. We're drawing it like a ribbon here, blocking sites. Another thing called troponin, or really a troponin complex, is a set of more regulatory proteins. Together, these regulatory proteins block those myosin binding sites. And if the myosin doesn't bind the actin, the muscle can't contract because that thin filament isn't going to be sliding. But when a neuron stimulates a muscle, it can trigger a release of calcium, and those little calcium ions bind to troponin. The troponin has a conformational change, and this lets the tropomyosin move off the myosin binding site. Now the myosin heads to bind. Pretty fascinating way to regulate. Next time you pick up that biology textbook, you might want to pause to reflect on the amazing events occurring in your skeletal muscles. Well, that's it.
That's pretty cool, right? You can actually see it up close. So this is reminding you that your incisors are wedges, right?
Is this an old AI picture?
It's from physical science, 2 years ago. Pretty interesting. Yeah, 2 years ago, physical science is when that one was done. They've certainly gotten better in that time, right?
It's only 2 teeth. How hard is it to brush?
No, man, maybe he's just not doing what he's supposed to be doing. I don't know.
What was this picture used for?
Teeth or wedges. Yep. All right, so now we're going to get to know friend here some more. Okay? Going to interact with our buddy. Okay.
Why does he got a middle pipe of both?
To hold him up because he's got no muscles. All right, so his name is Wilhelm. Do we remember why? Yes. Okay. So he is named after Wilhelm Röntgen, Wilhelm Conrad Röntgen, who was a German dude, experimental physicist, who produced and detected electromagnetic radiation in a wavelength that we call X-ray, right? And they used to be called Röntgen waves back in the day, Röntgen rays. And in 1901, he became the first recipient of the Nobel Prize in Physics. So if that ever comes up on Jeopardy, now you know the answer. Who is the first recipient of the Nobel Prize in Physics? Wilhelm Röntgen. In recognition of the extraordinary services he has rendered by the discovery of the remarkable rays subsequently named after him. And then we also have Röntgenium, which is named in his honor as well. And there's our buddy Wilhelm. Looking German. Yeah, looking pretty German. And this is one of his first famous images. That is his wife's hand and her ring, which is pretty, you can really see it. You can see where it goes under the bone even. That's really cool. So he's officially credited with discovering X-rays in 1895, and he received the Nobel Prize for it, but there's some controversy, specifically from Philip Leonard, who claimed that the discovery was based on earlier work with cathode rays. Leonard, a German physicist, argued that his experiments, and specifically a vacuum, there's an extra comma there, a vacuum tube he designed and shared, were crucial to the breakthrough. Again, this is a that wasn't your discovery, it was mine situation, which we get quite often in science, right? So there's often some controversy where big discoveries are concerned. So I need 2 guinea pigs to start. Here's what we're gonna do. 2 people will come up. I will say, find the following bone. And whoever finds it first will stay, and another guinea pig will come up and compete for the next bone. So Isabella, and we'll go Isabella and we'll go Ridley. All right, let's see how we do. And you're going to touch the bone gently. We're not going to knock Wilhelm over, but we're going to touch Wilhelm gently. Let's see who will be fastest. I'll let you guys vote on who is fastest. Your first bone is sternum. Okay, who won? Isabella won. Okay, who wants to compete against Isabella next? Barrett, come on up. See how well we do. We're starting easy. Some of them will get more challenging. All right, your next bone is femur. Oh, who won that time?
Isabella.
Isabella. Okay, who wants to go against her now? Drew? All right, let's see. We have a reigning queen. All right. Your next bone is clavicle. Oh, yeah. She was real fast. Okay, who wants to be next? Everybody's afraid. Do I have to call somebody up? Come on, Claire. All right. So we had our clavicle. Our next bone is fibula.
Is it on?
Let's see. She's got it. Isabella has the right one. So the fibula is the little one, right? The little one on your leg.
Fibula, right?
Yeah, we're getting there. All right, good job. Who's going against her now? Who's brave? Who's brave?
Redemption.
Okay, redemption. Let's do it. I like redemption. Redemption is good. All right. Your bone is cervical spine. Yes, it's up there. The top portion of your spine is your cervical. Cervical refers to neck. Like a uterine cervix is the neck of the uterus. Same thing. All right, who's brave? Come on, who's brave? Eunice, you want to be brave? Come on, Eunice. No. Nobody else? Oh my gosh. All right, Drew. I was going to say, Isabella, you are one intimidating woman. Very good. All right, let's see. Your next one is humerus. Take out it again. Humerus. So that's this arm, upper arm bone. Yep, your upper arm. Wait, don't go anywhere. Somebody might be afraid. Anybody want to go? All right, I'll leave Drew. All right. All right, here's next. Let's see. Your next one is sacrum. Yeah, she's got it. This fused part at the back of your pelvis is your sacrum. What's this guy at the bottom of your sacrum? Tailbone and coccyx. Yep, tailbone and coccyx. Very good. All right, your next one is patella. Oh, she's so fast. Yes, kneecaps. He's like, I don't know. Kneecaps. All right, and your next one is metatarsals. Oh, she's got it. Good. Metatarsals are these long bones in your feet, not your toes, but the long bones across the top of your feet. Metatarsals. All right. Do you want to give it up? Are you going to stay? All right. Kenna's going to give it a shot. Come on, Kenna. All right. Your next one is scapula. She got it again. Yes. Shoulder blade. Very good. Scapula, shoulder. You can stay. All right. Your next one is thoracic spine. Yes, the middle section. Cervical, thoracic. Very good. The bottom part is lumbar, right? All right. Very good. Okay. And your next is metacarpals. She got them. All right. So your metacarpals are these long bones in your hand, not your fingers, the long bones in your hand. You can stand on those shoes unless you want to call. Do you want to call somebody else? Do you want her to stay?
Yeah, feel free.
Stay. All right. Your next one is tibia. Yep. Shin bone, the big bone in the bottom of your feet. Fibula's the little one, tibia is the big one. Okay. Come on, Kenna, you got it. All right, you amped? You ready? You ready? You ready? You ready? Okay, your next one is ulna. Let's see, do we have it? Yeah. This one's ready. Yeah, I hold it up so you can see it. Yes, so this should be, yes, ulna here, and then radius. How you can tell if you hold your hand out, like hold your elbow still and rotate, the one that's moving is your radius. Your ulna is staying put, your radius is rotating. And your ulna is like a little longer, I would say. Yeah, longer. All right. Next is phalanges. You got multiple options here. There you go. So toes and fingers. These are your phalanges, whether they're your toes or your fingers. Okay. Next is radius. There you go. Yeah. Yep. Okay. The other one. All right. And ilium. Oh, yes, she got it. Your hip bone, your pelvic girdle is your pelvic girdle, this whole area. This is your ilium, right? And you got it. Good job. All right, gang. Very good. Bravo. Yes, very good. All right. So if you're taking birds next week, come prepared to take birds, and we are good.